Oh my guys, such Huke again. I hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. The final day of online COD of the entire season begins this evening. There are two teams that have the potential to be the #1 seed going into the World Championship. Both of those teams have played their final qualifier for Major Football. What is certainly not true is that Drazah wants to fist bump Scrappy anytime soon. That drama that's continued now for the last 18 months or so is still very much strong going into DreamHack Dallas, and it's very likely indeed, based on the trajectory of these two teams, that we get to see another Scrap versus Drazah matchup on the main stage. Very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I greatly appreciate it. Plenty to get into today. Starting here, speaking of DreamHack Dallas, thanks to a couple of guys pointing this out to me. This is the entire setup. So, well, okay, here we go. There's a lot going on here, just to quickly break it down. We've seen the setup for Major 4, the Call of Duty tournament, and that seems to be in, well, the big arena, right? Here we go on the right-hand side. That's where Major 4 is going to be. We then have HyDra pretty much on the other side of things over there. We've got the Chess Esports World Cup stuff. There's StarCraft is here. There's all sorts of other stuff happening. ESL Impact Grand Finals or whatever. And then you've got Intel Extreme Masters, ESL. So you've got the CS tournament happening in this venue over here in the arena. So yeah, the arena's got the Counter-Strike. Halo's over there in Hall A. Okay, probably a bit of a trek from the COD stuff, but you know, it probably makes sense. And then COD with challenges and all that type of stuff has the big Hall F over on this side of things. So yeah, that's how it's going to look in DreamHack Dallas if you're attending and want to figure out exactly what's going on. We're going to speak about Drazah in a second. Just a quick 8s watch. Neptune, Kremp, Sib. Sib's been interestingly struggling lately, right? He started the season poorly. He then turned up big time because at the start of the year he had literally a 0.7 for the first couple of series. He then turned that around, so now he has roughly a 1.0 on the season, but it's still not been a great year for Sib. And yeah, some recent series since they've made the changes, right? They brought in Spark, they brought in Capsule. Doesn't seem like Sib's quite there, at least in terms of his gameplay, but also maybe he's a bit mentally compromised. I don't know. Like, it's obviously been a difficult season for him on the New York team last season with showing a lot of promise, winning an event, and then obviously not falling short just in the end of the World Championship. The team blows it up in the off-season. Scrap and HyDra end up going, okay, who's only teaming with HyDra, but you know what I'm saying, right? HyDra ends up going to Los Angeles, Thieves to play with Scrap. Sib doesn't, you know, get an opportunity better than to stay on Cloud9, which, you know, on paper wasn't the worst thing in the world, but of course this season it's not exactly gone to plan. So some talks on what they may or may not do next. Ghosty, Huke, aBeZy, Drazah in there as always. Quickly on challenges, a couple of updates here. We know that the Stallions, they're going to be turning up to Dallas in that venue that we've literally just looked at. So they're going to be basically on this side of the venue here where the Challengers stuff and the Challengers bracket is going to be. They are hoping to do pretty well for the rest of this Challengers Cup. They guaranteed themselves top 8. Swooty was tweeting about it saying, look, keep writing me off, appreciate the support, you know, let's keep going, love my teammates and all this at the Stallions. So it is actually a really cool story at the moment. But of course, we know that his teammate is going to be this guy, Zach, of course, coming over from Australia. There's lots to talk about whether this guy is going to deliver or not, how that's going to look, is he the new Pred? But yeah, here he is. Flight leaves in an hour, and then he tweeted this out slightly later on, and you guys can see, I think he's, you know, I imagine he's landed all safe and sound at this point, but he's flying in there directly to Dallas Fort Worth for the event. So pretty crazy stuff. I'm excited for that storyline over the weekend, how those guys get on. Of course, the other talking point lately was around Encourage, right? Because we know Encourage quit playing COD recently, but he's back, or maybe he's back. I don't know. He did this tweet yesterday, which nice little clip on the Skyline Hardpoint. People have said, is Encourage going to return? You know how it is with these, you know, Challenger kids, pro players. They never, you know, they never want to quit, really. They might say that they do, but it's kind of difficult. And Encourage is still young with lots of, you know, promise and potential in the future. Of course, he was one of the original members kind of that Stallions team that started getting some gas. So anyway, he tweets this out, and in the replies he says, you know, maybe I'll come back eventually if really it's not necessarily so much on Encourage, at least as far as he's concerned. It's more on the state of challenges in general, which is probably justified given that Hex, of course, said a similar thing when he was asked the other day, why don't OpTic have a challenges team? It's like, well, why would we in the current state of things? Couple of teams that might need to blow it up or do something interesting. We know that at the start of the month, Ravens got a decent result. There was talk, oh, maybe Ravens are back, right? Look at this. But as Octen says, yeah, revisiting this, these guys are still terrible. And of course, CDL Major Central has been absolutely cooking on these Falcons guys. It's an interesting set of CDL standings, really, because you look at the standings going into the World Championship. Thieves are at 440, FaZe are at 430. We'll certainly get to those two in a second. Toronto and Surge are kind of battling it out. I mean, they are battling it out for the third seed in the tournament, or for the World Championship. Third seed plays 6th, and then fourth seed plays 5th at Champs. Of course, all this can change around because the numbers here are relatively clear-cut, but I think that it's pretty likely that Ravens are going to end up being 6th seed. So, and Miami are going to be 5th seed. So really, you want to be the 3rd seed. I think if you're Toronto or Surge, it's kind of maybe one of the reasons why Surge's win last night was quite important, because if Ultra won, then more than likely that guarantees them the 3rd seed. It's maybe not the biggest deal in the world, but I mean, right now, do I want round 1 at Champs, Ravens or Heretics? Like, that's pretty clear cut. If I'm OpTic, do I care about being 8th or 7th? Not really. I mean, I'm playing Thieves or FaZe regardless. Either way, it's going to be tough, but if you win it, then, all of a sudden you've got massive momentum. But if I'm in this position as Toronto or Surge, that 3rd seed is looking pretty tasty, right? And, obviously if you're the number 1 seed at the end of the year, you play OpTic. Do you want to play OpTic? Do you want to play Boston? I mean, look, right now I'm sure that Thieves and FaZe won't really care. They'll still try and win Major 4. Whatever happens with the seeding happens with the seeding, right? I mean, at the end of the day, they're not going to be throwing a grand final so they can avoid playing OpTic the first round of Champs. So this is how it looks. I think the key point, though, to take away is that right now Ravens, I mean, despite the great start to the year that they had, have regressed dramatically. I feel like this was always coming at some point, but we're certainly seeing it right now. They're probably going to hold on to 6th. They had enough points for a long time to certainly make it to the World Championship, but right now, would I take Cloud9? Would I take Rocker over the Ravens? Yeah, maybe. I think for sure I would argue that, but in terms of current power rankings, but that's not how it's going to be, and that's fair enough, right? They didn't qualify. Ravens earned it over the season, so I think it's justifiable, but still, you might want to think if you're Ravens, if you're Boston, although they're probably not going to make a change, or if you're some of these other teams, then maybe something is necessary, right? I mean, Falcons are sitting at 2-27 on the year. It's pretty brutal. Even after making their roster changes, it's not got any better. I mean, what was the Paris Legion team in Vanguard, when they were horrific? Were they 2-23, something like that? So Falcons, in terms of actual series counts, are even worse, and it might only get worse going into the Major. But there's certainly a few teams here that need to be considering whether, or frankly when, they blow it up, because Falcons, I'm expecting as soon as they lose the tournament in Dallas, they're probably going to say, okay, what are we going to do for the World Cup? Gentlemate should probably do a similar thing as well, and because of course those teams have the time, not going to be there at Champs. Same for Rocker, same for Cloud9, but arguably even some of the teams that are going to Champs, they could think about something as well. But the reality is, for a team like Ravens, it might just be, they rolled the dice, they tried the Rex thing, it's not worked. What do you do? Bring back Vivid? Don't know about that either. Team would be compromised, so they might just have to run it down and accept the fact that, okay, congrats, they made Champs, and then Ravens as an organization probably gets sold off next year anyway, and then they have to find new spots regardless. So that's my take. Those are the standings. But I wanted to quickly mention FaZe, because as aBeZy says, GG's to Falcons, 1-3-0. They, obviously locked in nicely. They're still 10 points behind Thieves, but as I say, therefore that means that it all comes down to who places higher at the upcoming Major. Unless both of them bomb out top 6, which would be a pretty big surprise. Cellium ended the stage, by the way, with a 1.32 KD. Pretty absurd individual numbers, kind of as always from Cell, but still, he's been probably getting better and better as the season has gone on. It's nearly his highest ever, but it is not the highest ever. That record, as we know, still belongs to Zinni. But a couple of clips I wanted to share, certainly from Drazah's interview with Puckett and the guys last night. Puckett, as always, did a great job answering the very pertinent question. He also mentions this whole ARs equal blessed thing. I don't know what you guys think about this. Look, at the end of the day, the ARs are going to say the Jackal's OP, and to be fair, Cellium likes to use the Jackal on a Hacienda. It wasn't that long ago where we saw FaZe pull out 4 SMGs, 4 Jackals on the Hassi, so it is doable, but the aims definitely in the recent patch update, I think, has got significantly stronger, and I think it's pretty well balanced at the moment. A lot of the ARs, though, are doing really well. I think, the last few years it's been SMG is dominating in terms of who's the MVP running. I think this year an AR is going to win it, right? It's probably going to be Cell or it's going to be Scrap. That's my opinion. I don't know who I'm leaning towards right now. I think it's actually super tight, and it depends who wins the final event of the year, or maybe even just who places higher or something, right? Because I think you can argue both Scrap and Cellium. Maybe you can argue HyDra as well, but really it's between those two, in my opinion. I think Scrap would be deserving. I think that Cell would be deserving, but it depends what happens at the final major. Because FaZe have won 2 majors, of course. Thieves have won 1. So yeah, if neither of them win, does that mean anything for Cellium? 2-1 in terms of majors of the season? Possibly. But this is what I really wanted to share, talking about the drama with Scrap, right? We know that these two have had beef for a long time. You know, we're working on a bit of a documentary on the Breaking One channel to break down exactly everything that happens between those guys over the last couple of years. But it was chaos largely through last season. Even in the off season, they refused to fist bump one another. And then at the start of the year, there was all that drama. Scrap wanted to go and fist bump him in Madrid. Drazah refused and then said on stream after the fact, like, why does he think I'm going to show any respect to him when he's shown no respect to me and my family? And that is clearly not going away at all.
As well, on the Call of Duty side. So obviously Thieves win the last major, right? And you guys weren't playing your best Call of Duty. You'll admit that. The rest of the players will admit that. But if you were to have matched up with them in that bracket, do you think even that version of you guys would have taken down the Thieves?
Honestly, I think right now we just have Thieves' number. So I think, going into that day anyways, I knew our hardpoint wasn't the greatest, but I'm never betting against myself. So like, I think any team we play there, we could have won. Obviously we played Miami and we lost, but I think we have the potential and, to win on any time we're playing bad. We have the potential to beat any team. It doesn't matter how bad we're playing. So I think we could have beat them for sure.
What would it take to give a fist bump at the end of that match?
There's nothing. So
nothing.
That's dead.
Not happening. Get it out of your mind. It's done now.
Yeah, you're right. I was just going to ask about the sign. ARs equals blessed was being held behind you, which is funny considering that both you and Cellium have been unreal during this stage. What's that all about?
I don't know. I think my subs are just going crazy, I think, low key. So I don't know why they're saying ARs are blessed. I'm pretty sure people are running multiple subs. Like,
right?
I don't know. I've seen some pieces with the sub. Like Hasi, I think MC was running it because it's so good. So I think they're just, they're tweaking.
Jealousy is jealousy. It is what it is. You guys look good in red, but they are green. See you later.
Thank you.
Green with envy. All right, let's keep moving.
There you go.
Can we talk about? God, you guys are dumb. Can we talk about this?
So there was a feeling for some time maybe the beef would be squashed. Maybe they would decide, okay, we're just going to move on, put it behind us, and maybe in 20 years they might. But yeah, for now that is certainly not the case. The vitriol is still there between the pair of them, and it's perfect timing. We've got to see Thieves lose to FaZe a good couple of times this year. They didn't play though at Major 3 because FaZe lost too early, and Drazah's been there before on the other side of that where FaZe would win an event or something and they would say, Scrap or Toronto as it was last year, why are you top 4 rather than matching up with me in the finals, right? So maybe Scrap could have done the same thing after Major 3, but of course so far this season it's definitely been Drazah that's had pretty much everyone's number, to be honest. It's just they had an underwhelming performance at Major 3. These though are the 3 games to close out the entire season on the online qualifiers. It starts with an absolute banger. Gentlemates Boston. Wow, I'm so ready for this. Whoever designed this schedule, cooked. Boston should win. Gentlemates might take it to 5. I don't know. At the end of the day, what does still matter is seeding for the major, and we'll have a look at how that stands actually right about now, because if we look at the Major 4 standings, we've got Heretics at 5-0, FaZe at 4-1, Thieves at 3-2, so that's the 4th seed for them. Toronto are 3-1, but they play OpTic today, so there's gonna be some interesting stuff happening here in the 3-2 category. Gentlemates and Boston are both 1-3, but Boston have a horrific map count, so Boston need to win this series and need to win it comfortably to try and make sure they get the tiebreaker, but I'm not really sure it's even that possible, because even if Boston go 2-3, there's a load of other teams already with 2 wins, and these guys' map counts are way better. So if anything, the team that has the better chance to make it to winners is actually going to be Gentlemates here. Ravens are cooked, Falcons are of course cooked, they always are. So yeah, this is how it looks. It's real competitive though in the midfield, because Rocker are 2-2, Surge are 2-2, OpTic are 2-2, and Rocker are the 7th seed. Cloud9 are the 8th seed right now at 2-3 with an 8-10 map count. So even if Boston 3-0 Gentlemates and get to a 6-11 map count, still not going to be good enough to win that head-to-head tiebreaker. So I think actually Boston are cooked regardless. Maybe it's Gentlemates, if they were to 3-0 and get to 10-11, they would be in a better position to do so. But yeah, I guess to be fair, Rocker could get slammed 3-0, and then that would be 8-12 map count for them, which maybe makes it a bit more competitive. So yeah, I don't know. The map counts do get pretty tasty today, but it is is plausible that both of these teams, Gentomate and Boston, both start in losers with the way that this series might go. Ultra then versus OpTic is really important for the seeding, because if OpTic win, they get to 3-1 with actually a really nice map count. That would potentially secure them, you know, 3rd seed, which might be very nice. If they lose, they'll still make it because their map count is good enough. So not too much to worry about there, but honestly, the 10 points for OpTic would be kind of critical. And against Ultra, they're certainly not the favourites. As, okay, Ultra lost yesterday, but OpTic, of course, lost the other day to Gentomate, right? So it's kind of difficult to say, but it is the Mercules Bowl, right? It is Mercules versus Beans. I'm well excited for that. And then Rocker Surge to close everything out. I mean, look, we had it yesterday. Surge played Toronto. We had Cloud9 play Thieves. That was tough. Rocker playing Surge is going to be equally tough. And Surge, again, they've not had the cleanest stage. They'll want to get the win on the board here because they're currently 2-2 to get the best seeding possible and try and overtake Ultra for the World Championship seedings as well, because that's important too. So I think Rocker are going to have an uphill battle. Very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care, and I'll see you next time.